I am Jasper Farinas from the Group 1, and today, along with Ms. Ellen Faith Borja, we're going to present our report about an overview of the introduction to ICT. But first, what is ICT? So ICT stands for Information and Communication Technologies. So even though there's no single or universal definition to it, the term ICT is generally accepted to stand for the digital devices, networking components, applications, and systems that allow people and organizations to convert, process, transmit, or retrieve information anywhere and anytime. So ICT has three components, and those three are information, communication, and technology. Now let's move on to information. So information refers to the knowledge obtained from reading, investigating, or research. With information, we can make decisions, keep ourselves aware of what is happening in our environment. So in ICT, information is the sole reason why we communicate, and the technology is needed as information is either broadcasted like news, used in transactions like in business, and for references in educational needs. So now next on communication. Communication is an act of transmitting messages. It is a process whereby information is exchanged between individuals using symbols, signs, or verbal interactions. Previously, people also communicated by poetry and performing drama. So communication is also broadcasted using tools, or it is dependent upon tools like telephone, radio, and television. But in ICT, it is the way how the information is transmitted, and it utilizes the technology by making use of tools like more than the telephone, but also computers and nowadays cell phones. So the communication component upon ICT is very essential for us during these days, as because nga hindi kita kagawa sa ating sariling places because of the threat of the pandemic. And next is the technology, which is our tool for us to communicate. So technology is the use of scientific knowledge, experience, and resources to create processes and products that fulfill human needs. So technology is very vital in communication. So there are many types of technology, but in ICT, technology is always referring to devices like computers, mobile phones, and other devices that allow an individual or an organization to send or receive information or to interact with other people in the digital or online world. So ICT has brought so many devices for us to utilize in such an objective nga mag-communicate kita sa ibang nga tao. Mas damo nang nagaguluwa nga technology. So then, as I have mentioned about the devices or technology used in ICT, so the most common device we use in ICT is the computer. So in our past course, we have learned about the development and the evolution of computers right from its origin, first generation, and upon its latest. So now, let's move on to the evolution of computers. So computer, from the name itself, came from the word computing and has started as a non-electronic device like the abacus, and then it later on developed as the first generation computer, which is the ENIAC, which is the electronic numerical integrator and computer. So the 6 generations are just simply as first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and the latest as the new era. So we shall start with the first generation. So the first generation of computers, which has occurred within 1940 to 1956, has utilized vacuum tubes to run the ENIAC, punched cards, and magnetic tapes to store data. So within this time, ang size ng computers is around like isa ka bilog na classroom or mas dako pa sa isa ka bilog na classroom, and it actually uses so much vacuum tubes as because nga wala pa naka-discover ang mga scientists mangin efficient ang computer bisan amo na sa kato kadako. Next, let's move on to the second generation. So then the second generation of computers had introduced the use of transistors. So it has many advantages compared to the previous generation's interventions in 1956 to 1963. So dito naman sa second generation, introduce na ang use ng transistors, which has replaced the vacuum tube, which made lesser heat than those vacuum tubes, and mas efficient kag cost effective ang transistor sa pag-run sang isa ka computer. Right after that, around 1964 to 1971, which is the third generation of computers, has introduced the reduction of computer model sizes and the use of silicon chips and the development of integrated circuits. So also in this era, hardware and software were sold separately, wherein na-create na dason ang industry isang softwares, wherein may mga programmers na. So, newer models of computers have been developed, and it signified the occurrence of the fourth generation in 1971 until the early 1990s. So, Intel has invented the first microprocessor in 1971. Then, Steve Jobs introduced the first Apple computer in 1976. And IBM has then also introduced their first personal computer. Then, computers is much more nga nagdasig iya speed from the other generations. Kag ang size 100 times smaller na than the first generation ones. Kung do isa ka classroom ang old nga models ng computers dati. So around the fourth generation, mas naging magamay na sa that it could just fit within a table na lang. Diri man dason na conceptualize ng idea about personal computers. So next is the fifth generation, wherein most of us naabutan pa naton ini and or also our parents, where the fifth generation of computers has brought more efficient and technologically advanced computer models that has also offered the invention of modern computer devices like robotics, virtual reality, intelligent systems, and language translation programs. After such great innovations of the fifth generation, so the latest era has taken over. So it is the new era of computers. There are computer models that differ in size, specification, and use. The technology became more advanced and modern and probably sophisticated. So the use of teleconferencing and speech recognition systems has been introduced. So mas damo naman dason nga models ang computers ang naguluwa. Like for example, ang mainframes kag supercomputers ang ginagamit ng scientists, engineers, and naguluan naman dason ang mga mini computers ang ginagamit sa mga businesses, personal computers ang ginagamit sa syempre para sa ton mga estudyante, mga teachers, and mga nag-uubra sa opisina, and ang mobile computers, probably we can recognize as tablets today. Now we have known about the development and evolution of computers. So now let's move on to the usage of ICT in daily life. There are 4 fields that are notable upon the common use of ICT in its operation. So those are namely education, industry, banking, and e-commerce. So first is education, where ICT is used as the main means of making referencing easier for researchers and students. It is also used by teachers for teaching purposes and participate in online forums. So aside from those, ICT is also used for administrative purposes to keep school records and make sure operations are running smoothly. So as most of us students can actually testify to that, during these times nga ang ICT na gid ang pinaka aton way para maka-attend sa classes. Not only nga diri kita naga-rely para sa aton yung mga answers or diri kita naga-learn, also ang ICT naman ang nag-help sa aton nga maka-create sang virtual nga classrooms kay hindi kita maka-attend kag makatipon sa eskwelahan. So next is the banking sector, wherein ICT has made it more easier for people nga maka-transact or maka-use ng banking services. So, with the existence of ICT, we had more opportunities and mas nangin flexible bala ang aton nga pag-banking. Like for example, nagwa na ang mga ATM machines, direct deposit, electronic transfers, kag ang online banking nga pinakauso gid subong. Ang presence man sang ICT nakapag-enable sang mga madamo ang possibilities for us. Like for example, ang 24-hour services nga wherein bisan gabi na pwede ka withdraw sa mga kwarta. And also at the same time, ang real-time nga updates apan sa imong cash flow. And also para sa part man sang mga bankers, mas nangin mahupo sa ila mag-track down sang activities nga involved ang bangko kag ang mismo nila nga area. ICT has also great impact upon the industries as it made the production much more efficient and monitored. Also, ICT has developed more computer-aided machines that has took over jobs that might be dangerous to humans. So, computers are also used by the industry to collect data for their references as sa ilaman research kay syempre ang research kinahanglanon man sa mga industries. Also, for administrative purposes man wherein the owners can oversee the production processes and pwede nila ma-identify kung ano ang nanging errors sa ila production process. So also, through ICT, e-commerce has to rise and as because nga ang e-commerce naga-boost sang economy, ang e-commerce nangin eminent because of ICT. So, mas nangin mahupos na ang buying and selling and ang customers hindi matagan balas ang dako nga hassle kay ang customers they don't need to actually go to outlets to secure products as because today may online selling na, may online businesses na. So, with the use of the computers provided by the technologies of ICT nga mas nangin easier man para sa suppliers nga matrack ang ila inventory wherein kung sang una kinahanglanon pa naton mag-isip, mag-write down sa papel or mag-umusina nga kung kaisa nagakadula pa and maka-cause gid sang stress kay syempre ang overwhelming ang workload. But now with the use of ICT mas mapose na ang pag-track sang inventory due to barcodes nga ginascan lang natin gamit sang scanners nga nagadirekta na dason it record pa kada sa computer. So also, customer service has improved as employees use computers to respond to customer inquiries and provide updates sa customers. So mas madali na nga mag-transact upon our orders. Like for example, pwede natin nga hindi na natin kinahanglan pa magkadto sa mga stores para sabi magpa-cancel kita or mapadugang kita sa ating order or mapatrack down kita sa mga available nga stocks. If ever nga as sabi businesses nga nagapangita sang supplier, hindi na kinahanglanon nga personally sila magkadto kay ang customer service nagayus naman sang ICT nga much manging convenient para sa aton tanan. So not only education, banking, industries ug e-commerce ang naga-dipulos or naga-utilize ang ICT. So mas damo man sang sectors like for example architecture, arts, careers, government, healthcare, law enforcement, transportation, travel kag ang aton sarili man nga home. Okay, most of us naga-invest na sa technology. So for my last topic, I will be discussing about the difference between computerized and non-computerized systems upon those four fields nga akong discuss. So first, what is a computer system? So a computer system is composed by a hardware and a software which processes data and can also transfer our data in. So first, ang differences upon sa education, upon the computerized and non-computerized nga system is that ang mas lapad na ang ma-provide sang teachers kay with the presence of ICT mas nang productive sila kay di na kinahanglan mag-spend sang damo pagid na time para magsulat sang mga visual aids and also mas makasave sila kay they just use PowerPoint presentations and video presentations. So unlike sa non-computerized system, nagabase sila sa textbook and kinahanglan nila mang laghap pagid sa library. The same man sa students wherein na kung sa computerized systems, isang click lang sang student kung may gina-search silang kinahanglanan nila for assignments, madali na lang. But sa non-computerized, kinahanglanan mo gid mangita within the library or if not available sa library, manghulam ka pa sang book sa sa iban. Also, ang approach upon presenting learnings is also different kay based sa traditional na way, wala na gagamit sa internet kag kinahanglan nila magsulat sang visual aids. Next is upon banking. So before ICT has existed, banking was done manually and kinahanglan sang customer na mag-present sang presence sa banking location or sa bank mismo, and ang transactions is only can be made around working hours. And also mas madugay ang pag-approve sang any application sang either loans or other pagiging transactions kay manual lang gid siya. So within ICT ang transactions mas madali na kay ang transactions via computers na and transactions can be done at any time or at any place na convenient para sa customer, and there are so many services nga pwede na ma-provide sa ICT for banks. So next is the pan industry. So before ICT has existed or has take part into the industry, ang labor is very dependent upon humans and tanan is very manual. And also at the same time, ang production is very slow, kag very limited kasi ang tao mismo ang naga-create or naga-produce sa specific na products. So with the presence of ICT sa industry, ang computers na ang pinaka naga-operate gid sa isa ka industry, wherein ang isa ka adlaw abi ang isa ka adlaw abi nga operation sang only isang manual lang pwede nga madoble. And now sa commerce naman, so before ICT could actually take part sa commerce, ang way nga mag-trade ang tao sang una has used the barter system, and then nag-exist na sa ang currency, which is ang atong kwarta, and ang advertisements is either printed flyers or pwede nga ginhambal lang naton dira. Like for example, uso pa sa una ang mga nagahawid yung blasang megaphone kag naga-inform sa tao about their business. And also, ang trading is quite slow kasi sa global nga level, as because nga mabudlay kag medyo costly ang magpangita sang products within the global market. So then, sang may ICT na upon commerce, na ang e-commerce na dason ang nagsulod, wherein ang buying and selling, ang trade, hindi na mabudlay kay makontak ka na lang sa ila. Unlike sa before nga nag-take part ang ICT, so kinahanglan mo pa personally magkadto sa supplier to actually secure your supplies. So now, makontak ka na lang sa ila via the same site, or like for example, sa Shopee bala, kung mag-order ka, i-chat mo na lang or ma-place ka sa order, ma-check out ka dira. Tapos, i-send na lang nila sa imo. Unlike before, na kinahanglan mo pa magkadto dito, magdala sa vehicle para kung transport public sa inyo. So that was it for my part on this report. So now, Miss Ellen Faith Borja will take the lead to actually finish for the rest of the topics.